Shalom uvracha, everybody. This week's parsha is Parshat Metzorah. Metzorah, it's talking all about the person who got the strange skin diseases we had discussed, that they needed to be purified. So it's interesting that it speaks about the process of their purification. It says they would take two birds, they would take a branch from a cedar tree, they would take a crimson dyed, like a garment, like a fabric that is dyed crimson, and they would take hyssop. Hyssop is a low kind of plant that doesn't grow very high. Why would they take these things? It says that the person who's speaking bad about others, what leads us to speak negatively about others is that we feel arrogant, we feel haughty, we feel better than them. So this represents this arrogance is like kind of a ego. It's a high energy, so to speak. So that's why we bring the cedar tree that grows so high. That's telling this person, you behaved in an egotistical way. With the birds represents the fact that the person keeps on talking, gossip. And it says in Hebrew that birds, what do they make the sound peet, 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 like that. Lefatzpet in Hebrew is to keep talking. So it's telling the person, stop talking so much. Don't talk. Nothing good comes from talking so much about other people. So what is the rectification? Humble yourself. Humble yourself like the hyssop tree. That the hyssop tree is a low-growing plant. Humble yourself. And why the crimson that is dyed red? Because the dye that they use came from worms. And the worm is one of the lowest creatures. So too, humble yourself. It's reinforcing that fact. What is the way we can rectify negative speech? One of the best ways we can rectify negative speech is through learning Torah. Torah learning is holy learning. When we're reading a book on history or a book on science or a novel, we may be engaging our brain for sure. We may be increasing our intellect and knowledge, 100%. But not necessarily is it making our spirit grow. Not necessarily is it giving us spiritual strength. Torah, when we learn Torah, we're on one side we are increasing our intellect and increasing our knowledge, but we're also connecting to a higher spiritual source. It says God enclosed himself in the Torah. So when we learn Torah, we're actually connecting to God in a higher way. So that's why it's the rectification for this malicious negative speech, because we're engaged in holy speech and we're uplifting our speech. This week's Shabbat is also Shabbat Hagadol. The Passover before the Shabbat before Passover is always called Shabbat Hagadol, the great Shabbat. Why? Because it says that a miracle happened, that the Egyptian firstborns, when they heard what the last plague was going to be, they made a civil war. And the civil war was kind of a miracle, that they were fighting against each other. And I would say, you might not agree with me, that if anyone saw what's happening in Iran now, they've been having flooding, which is, they haven't had flooding like this in over 75 years. All of a sudden, very interesting timing that God decided to do that flooding. And I actually saw one video that the water, it's coming out almost red when it's flowing to the ocean. Pretty crazy. So it's showing them, don't mess with Israel. Just leave Israel alone. You better seek the peace of Israel, seek the good of Israel. And we will see the good of Israel, Bezrat Hashem. So Shabbat Shalom Mevorach. God bless you all.